Yeah. Right.
You protect them.
That's right.
You respect them.
That's right.
And you correct them.
That's right.
All three. And to be able to sit here with my dear brother is a blessing. It really is. Let's give it up for my dear brother. He was telling me about driving Malcolm X around in Los Angeles. Is that right, my brother? Having those dialogues with Malcolm. Of course, yesterday was Malcolm's birthday. It's like Lorraine Hansberry, both of them born May the 19th. And so much of what we talk about today is what Malcolm called chickens coming home to roost.
Come on down.
That the veil is being ripped off. So you can see all the lies hiding the crimes, all the mendacity hiding the criminality, and we were told it was about liberty. Hypocrisy on steroids. That's what we're dealing with today.
Yes, sir.
And this campaign, I'm so glad to see my dear sister Tricia Dent. She's head of my Justice for All party here in D.C. Give it up for my dear sister. Just wave. People can see your beautiful smile. Can see her beautiful smile. This campaign ain't nothing but a movement in a tradition of struggle of a great black people who for 400 years have been so chronically hated every day of their lives, but keep dishing out love warriors every generation. Woo. It's about love supreme, John Coltrane. It's about love and need of love of Stevie Wonder. Those are not just songs, those are love warriors. One of the reasons why we're in the situation we're in today, we don't have enough black spokespersons and black leaders who really love the people. They scared, they intimidated, they afraid, they laughing when it ain't funny and scratching when it don't itch. They're too well adjusted to injustice and well adapted to indifference, and therefore you can't depend on them. They lukewarm.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And when you really, deeply have a commitment to a serious love of the people, and all of us are cracked vessels, so we're going to make mistaken judgment, but you have to be consistent over time.
Right. That's right.
And that's what we don't have enough of. I come from a people who have been terrorized for 400 years.
Yes, sir.
500, my dear sister. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yet we produce freedom fighters. And yes, we call for freedom for all. We've always been an inclusive people, a global people, an international people, but we begin on the chocolate side of town.
Right.
You got too many leaders who love everybody but black people. I begin by loving my mama, my daddy, my grandmama, my granddaddy, my aunt, my uncle. I come out of Glen Ellish, the chocolate side of Sacramento. I come out of Shiloh Baptist Church, Reverend Willie P. Cook from Brookhaven, Mississippi, who baptized me. I'm deeply influenced by the Black Panther Party and Huey Newton and Erica Huggins and a whole host of others. How come? Even given the different ideologies in politics, they had a love of the people.
Go ahead. Talk to us, Dr. West.
Ah, that's what we need.
Right.
And the only thing that breaks the back of fear is love.
Yes, sir.
The only thing that gives people a sense of hope and feeling as if there is no hope is people who are willing to manifest the love. Never forget the story of Martin Luther King Jr. I remember Daddy King told me, he said, Brother West, when I saw Martin, my son, I couldn't believe it was the lowest point in my life. He was in that paddy wagon for 4.5 hours in the dark with a German shepherd from ATL, A-Town, Atlanta, driving all the way to Breedsville prison. And when he got out, he couldn't walk a straight line. All he could say was, this is the cross we must bear for the freedom of our people.
Talk to us.
That's love.
Talk to us.
That's concrete.
Talk to us.
That's fleshified.
Yes, sir.
That's manifest. That's something that's real as a heart attack.
Yes, sir.
Come on, brother. Strong as stone and new as foam. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm nothing but just a little small wave in the river of these great black people's tradition of love warriors and freedom fighters. And we also joy shares, given all of our sorrow. So this campaign is as much about Curtis Mayfield and Aretha Franklin as it is Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm a jazz man, I'm a blues man, I'm a rhythm and blues man. And when I'm down and out, if I can't put on some Luther Vandross and put on just a little James Brown, and I ain't even got to James Cleveland yet. We're talking about the tradition of a people.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And it's a tradition of a people in the midst of an American empire that is experiencing overwhelming spiritual decay and moral decadence, and that's not new. It has been wrestling with spiritual decay and moral decadence for indigenous peoples and black peoples and poor peoples and working peoples for hundreds of years, but now the chicken's coming home to roost.
Come on.
This is a unique historical moment.
Yes, sir.
A distinctive, unprecedented political, cultural, and spiritual moment.
That's right.
But one of the things we got to do always and already is get our souls intact.
That's right.
Yep.
We're talking before, my brother Silas, about the spiritual grounds. If you're not ready spiritually to tell the truth and seek justice with style and a smile, just like B.B. King playing Lucille saying, nobody loves me but my mama, and she might be jiving too. Yes, we are blues people. Mary Rock understands that. And what does it mean to be a blues people when you're in intellectual politics? It means first, Coltrane starts off Love Supreme, that first section is acknowledgement. You got to acknowledge the lies,
Yes,
acknowledge the suffering,
Yes,
acknowledge the misery,
Yes,
acknowledge the overwhelming pain and hurt and scars and bruises of folk.
Yes,
If you
sir.
don't start there, you're already twisted. And we haven't had the kind of spokesmanship and leadership on a collective level to tell the truth of the catastrophe. We got folk talking about problems. There ain't never been no Negro problem in America. There's been catastrophes visited upon black people and African people. And once you reduce the catastrophic to the problematic, you've already deodorized the situation. And we are folk people. I don't spend time with Bootsy for nothing. I don't love George Clinton for nothing. I don't listen to Sun Ra for nothing. They say we're going to keep it real and raw and funky. We don't want sanitized, sterilized, deodorized discourses. We got to tell the truth, and the truth is always beneath the deodorized level. Most of these politicians, no matter what color they are, they just deodorized. Just little puppets, nothing but just echoes of a silo. Thank God that the Johnson people, when they came up with the anthem for black people, came up with lift every voice, not lift every echo. And if all you're going to be is just an echo of a silo, then tell the people the truth and say you're just concerned about your career. You've given up on your calling. You've given up on telling the truth. You've given up on the funk, and don't fake the funk. And you say, well, Brother West, what this got to do with a campaign announcement? I'm just setting the stage. You got to understand what the context is.
Warm us up, Doc. Warm us up.
Because I'm coming into electoral politics as somebody whose major qualification is somebody who's been running for justice for 50 years. Somebody who's been trying to tell the truth for 50 years.
That's
Somebody
right.
seeking justice for 50 years.
That's right.
And I also been running for Jesus. I want to be honest with where I'm coming from. I love my Muslim brothers and sisters. I don't exist without Malcolm X. I don't exist without Muhammad Ali. This brother here, Honorable Silas Muhammad, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, a whole host of others, whatever disagreements I have, my love for them is deeper.
Oh, praise God. Praise God.
I'm honest, brother. But I'm a Jesus-loving free black man.
We are too.
And that's what gives me my strength. So I don't have to worry about somehow thinking that I don't have the fortitude, I don't have a thick enough armor in order to meet this battle, in order to work through all of these lies and crimes, and to make sure these folk not going to try to render me so afraid and scared that somehow I give up or cave in or sell out. No. No. I'll be a dead man. I'd rather be a corpse than a coward. True. Brother Martin used to say, I'd rather be dead than afraid. That's what we need when the moment of the chickens coming home to roost. So when you look at America, the first thing you see is it's an empire, not just a nation.
That's right.
It's been 70 empires since the beginnings of the species coming out of Africa. America's number 68. Every empire comes and goes. Every empire has a history. It emerges, sustained, begins to go down, and usually it's military overreach. Usually it's the corruption of their elites and their politicians. Usually it's the lies coming back and constituting a kind of blowback for them, given all the consequences of the lies that they've been told. Usually it has something to do with everyday people, the citizens, feeling as if they so hopeless and helpless and impotent and frustrated that they're willing to follow a strong man in the form of a tyrant.
Wake us up.
That's where we are. Trump ain't nothing but a bona fide gangster. Wanna be. Not even the real thing. 'Cause I grew up with some dead up gangsters. I still got a lot of gangster in me, so I know one when I see him. But he's tied to big military, he's tied to big money, so you can't even see what's behind him. And he manipulates the white supremacists and the male supremacists and all the other various forms of hatred and fear that he engages in and indulges in, so that people can't see exactly what he represents. He acts as if somehow he's with the common folk, but he's a billionaire, at least he says he is. And then Biden, acting as if he's some kind of progressive. Oh, that upset me in Morehouse yesterday.
Yes, sir.
See the great Morehouse College embrace a war criminal, embrace a genocide enabler, as if he's a grand exemplar of peace and justice. I want to tell the Morehouse brothers and sisters, we were born at night, but not last night. Violate flagrantly the precious legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. You trot him out as the grand example of Morehouse, and he turns over in his grave because he died talking about what? Poverty. He died talking about what? White supremacy. He died talking about what? Materialism. He died talking about what? Militarism. That's how you measure any nation or empire. How you treating poor folk. Look at the prisons. Look at the hoods. Look at the barrios and see how the people are doing. Then you look in the souls of the children and see what they focus on. What's their major attention? Is it the deodorized, superficial things of status and spectacle and image, or is it trying to wrestle with integrity, honesty, decency, being part of a community and willingness to take a risk for that community?
Come on.
That's Martin King.
Wake us up.
People say, oh, Brother West, you're always so hard on black folk. No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I'm critical of anybody, but I'm especially critical of black folk. Because I try to love them so. I'm concerned about them. I'm concerned about the future. I'm concerned about young folk not having access to the best of our history. What went into the making of a Harriet Tubman? What went into the making of a Marcus Garvey? What went into the making of an Ella Baker or a Toni Morrison? That's the challenge. And the only way young folk will be able to make a connection is to be able to see it clearly. We living in a moment now, if folk can't see the sermon, they don't want to hear a sermon. You don't exemplify it in what you're doing, what you're willing to serve and sacrifice, then all the language in the world is sounding brass and tinkling cymbal, is empty, is vacuous. And yes, now that this campaign is beginning to intensify, and you got the choice between the bona fide gangster and the genocide enabler, where do people go? It reminds me of the words of the great Henry Highland Garnett in 1837, the first time that black people were able to come together. He's the Free Negroes in Philadelphia, 1837. He had one leg. He's leaning on the crutch, probably with a little gangster lean. Henry Highland Garnett, Liberia, making the connections that you all made. What did he say to black people? He said, black folk, never confuse our situation with that of the Israelites of the Old Testament of Hebrew scripture. For us, Pharaoh is on both sides of the bloody Red Sea. Pharaoh on both sides. What you gonna do? I could hear a beautiful black sister in the back, and it's usually the black women who stand up first. Let's just be honest, brothers. We like to be out there and act like we so big and bad, but we know that we not too much without our sisters. And one of them said, could somebody just sing a song, please? Or crack a joke? Or somebody touch somebody? Or somebody grin? You see, that's loving folk too. We got to learn how to enable and empower folk in a variety of different ways. Justice is what love looks like in public. Tenderness is what love feels like in private. Black people have been a tender people. Try a little tenderness, says the genius from Macon, Georgia, named Otis Redding. Even Roney is a tender Roney for Bobby Brown. Written by Babyface. It's not just a song. Tender. We got to be tough but tender with each other. Even when we disagree. Honest with each other when we disagree. The love is deeper. The tenderness. The kindness. What did James Baldwin say about Malcolm X? Never met a more gentle human being in my life. Look at that perception as opposed to the white mainstream perception of Malcolm. Mad, full of rage, indignation. Yes, he's hating white supremacy. He's hating injustice.
Yes,
he's
sir.
hating domination. He's hating subjugation. But he was a gentleman. And one of the signs of decadence in black America is that we used to be a much more soulful people.
Yes, sir.
And soul ain't nothing but the sharing of a soothing sweetness against the backdrop of grim catastrophe. How do we soothe each other with a sweetness when we all down and out and sometimes think that Pharaoh's on both sides of the bloody Red Seas and somebody raises their voice and says, I think we can make a way out of no way. I think maybe we can step out on nothing and land on something. I think that what seems to be so impossible can still be in our reach if we can create some forms of community and family and solidarity such that we surprise ourselves and in connection with a God that is in larger control. Lo and behold, we surprise the world. That's the history of black people at our best.
Yes, sir.
That's what this campaign is about. So when I think of foreign policy,
Yes, sir.
I say America is an empire. I want to head the empire to dismantle the empire.
Go ahead.
I am an anti-imperialist. What does it mean to dismantle the empire? With 62 cents, my dear, magnificent vice presidential candidate and sister and comrade and fellow intellectual, Dr. Melina Abdullah, put it so well, the 62 cents that goes to the military for every dollar. So when it comes to war, we can find trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. When it comes to health care, when it comes to schools, when it comes to safe neighborhoods, when it comes to education, we can't find a penny. That's warped priorities.
Yes, sir.
It shows that we living in an empire where 1% of the population own 90% of the wealth. 3 individuals have wealth equivalent to 50% of the citizens in the country. 160 million people have wealth equivalent to 3 people. That's spiritually sick.
Yes, sir.
Grotesque wealth inequality.
Teach.
And we come from a tradition of abolitionists.
Right.
We want to abolish slavery. We don't want a liberal version of it. We want to abolish Jim and Jane Crow. We don't want a neoliberal version of it.
Talk to us.
This campaign wants to abolish poverty. It wants to abolish homelessness.
Yes.
Nobody ought to be poor in the richest nation in the history of the world. Most of the money's going to the military. We got to massively disinvest 800 military units around the world, 130 special operations in 130 nations, and all we have to do is look.
Lay it out.
Congo, look at Haiti. We're going to get to Gaza. But it's not just there. It's all around the world. They call it full spectrum dominance. Broader than Rome. More extensive than the British Empire.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what the American Empire brags on, even as it is imploding this very moment. They call it polarization, and I call it gangsterization. It's not just polarization. It's the gangsterization of the country. More and more people don't trust anybody. More and more people willing to grab for their gun in any moment of conflict. That has much to do with the gun violence, not just in the country as a whole, but within the black community. Because if you believe you can militarize the world, then that comes home and you end up militarizing your own society. I have traveled all across the nation. I go to elementary schools. They got more police than they have nurses and counselors. That's a militarized school.
Talk to us.
You're teaching young folk.
Talk to us.
You have conflict, go to Miller. Oh, yes. That's what the nation does in the world. That's what it is at home.
Wake it up.
That's spiritual decay. That's moral decadence. And what's behind the foreign policy? Big money. War manufacturers. Big money. Oligarchs. Plutocrats. Multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires behind the scene, gaining access to more and more monies. Does America know there's $8.7 trillion around the world in tax offshore for tax evasion? And yet we got poor folk who don't have access to health care, don't have access to jobs with a living wage. We got young folk with student debt, even as they graduate. How long can any society sustain itself? What does that have to do with reparations? Everything to do with reparations. Because before you get to reparations, you have to have a lens through which you view the world, in which truth and justice are at the center. And the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. You'll never know the truth about America's past or present unless you listen to the voices of those who suffer. And therefore, if you want to understand America from the vantage point of those who suffer, you begin with those who have been bombarded with white supremacy. Now, I know as black folk we want to move directly to Africa, but we will never ever deny the suffering of our indigenous brothers and sisters.
That's right.
They don't have to be in the room for us to tell the truth about their suffering, because we're concerned about truth across the board.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's genocide.
Right.
It's no accident that America cannot acknowledge genocide in Gaza. It can't even acknowledge genocide in its own history.
Talk to us.
And then you come back to the enslavement of African peoples. Dignified African peoples. Denial. James Baldwin used to say the innocence itself is the crime. How you gonna be innocent when you're the authorizers of the devastation?
Come on, Mr. President.
Imagine how spiritually sick that is. That's been the history of the country for too long. And on the black side town, the only way you can keep black people under control is to niggerize us.
Up to us, man.
To get us to believe we're really less beautiful. We're really less intelligent. We're really less moral. We ought to be running around scared all the time, distrusting one another, thinking we can't come together to constitute some solidarity and unity in diversity, and therefore the white supremacy inside of black people makes it difficult for us to straighten our backs up. It's one of the things we learned from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Straighten your back up.
Yes, sir.
Out on the front of the newspaper. Islam dignifies.
That's right. Teach us, Dr. West.
Islam dignifies.
Come on, Mr. President.
I got it from Jesus. Even you could be secular, get it your own way, but that was a deep insight of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it still is. We see it among our young folk these days. Where is the courage? Where is the vision? So reparations is simply an effort to tell the truth about the history of America. Yeah. Was there damage done? Was there theft that took place? Absolutely. If that's true,